Welcome to Life Stories, where we share powerful tales of personal growth, lessons learned, and moments that shape our lives. Today, we bring you the story of Emma, a woman who spent 5 years in a company, working tirelessly, only to be overlooked for a promotion she had earned. This is a journey of heartbreak, realization, and ultimate empowerment as Emma takes control of her life and discovers her true worth. It's a reminder that sometimes, we have to walk away to truly find ourselves. Stay tuned, and let's dive into this inspiring story. Don't forget to subscribe to begin today's journey. The restaurant buzzed with energy, and the warm glow of golden fairy lights filled the room, casting a soft ambiance over the long dining table where my colleagues and I sat. Laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the low hum of background music wrapped around us like a comforting embrace. This was supposed to be my night, a night where I would be recognized for the years of hard work I had poured into the company. It had been 5 long years. Years of late nights, fixing problems no one else wanted to handle, mentoring junior staff even though it wasn't part of my official role. All of it had led to this moment, the moment I had imagined 1,000 times. The moment I would finally be promoted to senior manager. My boss, David, had dropped hints for months, telling me that I was next in line for the position. It was my time, or so I thought. The anticipation was palpable. I adjusted the hem of my navy blue dress and glanced around at the table. My colleagues were in high spirits, celebrating the company's latest quarterly success. But as I sat there, surrounded by laughter and chatter, my heart raced with a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. At the head of the table, David stood, raising his glass and clinking it with a fork to get everyone's attention. The room quieted. Tonight, he began in his deep voice, carrying over the quiet chatter. I want to take a moment to recognize someone truly exceptional. Someone who has shown incredible dedication, drive, and talent in just a short time here at the company. It's rare to find someone who can make such an impact in only 3 months. My smile faltered, and I could feel my chest tighten. 3 months? I glanced up at David, confusion swirling inside me. He wasn't talking about me, he was talking about someone else. The words stung more than I expected. Sarah, he continued, turning toward a fresh face at the table. You have exceeded all our expectations. Your leadership, creativity, and problem-solving skills have impressed us all. It is with great pleasure that I announce your promotion to senior manager. I froze. The applause that followed was a blur in my mind. My fingers clenched around the stem of my champagne glass, and my throat tightened. I forced a smile onto my face, clapping along with the others. Sarah stood up, blushing and graciously accepting her new title, while I sat in stunned silence. This wasn't happening. I had worked so hard, for so long. And yet here I was, sitting in the shadows, watching someone who had been here for a fraction of the time I had take the role I had been promised. David turned toward me then, as if remembering I existed. He grinned, and of course, Emma, you've been such a valuable member of the team, he said, his voice dripping with hollow appreciation. We appreciate everything you do. That was it, a pat on the back. A hollow acknowledgement after 5 years of dedication. The room began to feel smaller, the laughter and celebration growing distant as I swallowed the lump in my throat. Of course, Sarah absolutely deserves it, I said, forcing my voice to sound cheerful as I lifted my glass in a toast. David nodded approvingly. She does a lot more than you already. Emma, he added with a chuckle. You should take notes. Laughter filled the room, and my smile tightened. I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks, but I didn't dare let it show. Sarah giggled awkwardly, mumbling something I couldn't quite hear. The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, like a slap across my face. My heart sank, but I laughed along with them. Because what else could I do? Cry? Beg? Ask David why he had strung me along for months only to humiliate me in front of everyone? No, I couldn't do that. Instead, I lifted my glass to my lips and took a slow sip, trying to hide the storm that was brewing inside me. The rest of the evening was a blur. I smiled, I chatted, I celebrated, but all the while, something inside me was breaking. This night that was supposed to be about me was now a night of quiet humiliation. When the party finally ended, I stepped outside into the cool night air, the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out my phone. I composed a short, simple email to our, my fingers shaking as I typed. Subject: Resignation letter submission. Dear David, please find my official resignation letter attached. Effective immediately. Best, Emma. I hesitated for just a moment before hitting send. As soon as the email left my outbox, I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected, relief. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't just leaving a company that had overlooked me for too long. I was taking control of my life, stepping away from a place that had never truly valued me. And I was about to show David exactly what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. That was the first part of my journey, when everything changed. The Monday morning after I sent my resignation letter, I walked into the office with a sense of quiet satisfaction. My resignation was already sitting in David's inbox, and he had no idea what was coming. The usual hum of the office was strangely muted as I passed through the doors. But I didn't mind. I felt different, stronger. At first glance, everything seemed normal. The receptionist greeted me with a bright smile, and my colleagues huddled around the break room, talking about their weekend plans, sipping on their morning coffees. Sarah was already at her desk, basking in the afterglow of her promotion, her pride shining through. I wasn't angry at her. She hadn't done anything wrong, and I could see that she was genuinely excited for her new role. But the real problem was sitting in his office, David, the man who had lied to me for months, telling me that I was the next in line for the promotion, only to turn around and hand it to someone else. I took my time, settling into my desk. I placed my bag carefully beside me, booted up my computer, and let the day unfold. But I knew the inevitable was coming. I knew David would eventually come to me. And sure enough, at exactly 9:30, his office door swung open. Emma, my office. Now, he called out, his voice sharp, desperate. The floor went eerily silent. No one had ever heard David speak like that before. There was urgency in his tone. Panic even. I stood up slowly, smoothed my blouse, and walked toward his office. As I crossed the threshold, the door clicked shut behind me. David was already seated at his desk, my resignation letter printed out in front of him. His eyes scanned my face, trying to figure out whether I was joking. "You're leaving?" he asked, his voice incredulous, almost as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Yes," I replied, sitting down across from him and folding my hands in my lap. "Effective immediately." "But why?" David's voice was soft now, almost pleading. "This is so sudden. We didn't discuss this." I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh, one that held more pain than amusement. "We didn't discuss Sarah's promotion either. But here we are." His jaw tightened, and I could see the anger bubbling up inside him. "Emma, that wasn't personal," he said, trying to remain calm. "She just outperformed you. She's been here for 3 months. I tilted my head slightly. "But sure, if that's what you believe." David leaned forward, his gaze intense. "You know I appreciate you, right? You've been such an important part of this company for 5 years. I don't want to lose you." I stared at him for a long moment, taking in the sheer audacity of his words. "You don't want to lose me," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "But you had no problem overlooking me for a promotion I worked years for. You had no problem laughing when I was humiliated at my own celebration party. And you had no problem telling me to take notes from someone who just got here." David's expression shifted. His usual smug confidence began to crack. I could see it in the way his shoulders slumped slightly, his hands twitching nervously. "Look," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should have handled things differently. But you resigning out of nowhere, this isn't the right move. Emma, you're making an emotional decision." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I sent that email on Friday night. David, If this was just emotion, I would have stormed out that same evening. But I didn't. I planned this. And I'm leaving on my terms. David's hand curled into a fist on the desk. Frustration and panic flooding his face. So what's your plan? Go to one of our competitors? Because I have to remind you, Emma, that we have non-compete agreements. I laughed again, shaking my head. Oh, you have no idea. I said, I don't need to go to a competitor. David's frown deepened. What do you mean? I leaned forward, savoring the moment. Do you remember Andrew Carter? The CFO you let go last year? David's eyes tensed. Of course. He remembered Andrew. Andrew had been one of the most valuable executives in the company. But David had forced him out, thinking he was replaceable. Andrew reached out to me a few months ago. I continued. He's starting his own firm and wanted me to lead the operations department. A director-level position. At first, I turned him down. I was loyal to this company. I paused, letting the weight of my next words settle between us. But Friday night changed everything. I called him right after I left the party. And he made the offer again. I accepted. David's face went pale. For a moment, he just stared at me, stunned into silence. I could see the realization dawning on him. The panic taking hold. You're leaving for Andrew's company? He finally asked. His voice tight. I nodded. I start next Monday. David opened his mouth to say something, but then closed it again. He exhaled sharply, his gaze darting around as if searching for a way out. Emma, be reasonable. This company has been your home for 5 years. We can work something out. We can talk about it. I stood up slowly, smoothing my blazer and preparing to leave. I don't want to talk. I said firmly. This decision is final. David's jaw clenched. You won't be able to come back, he said, his voice full of frustration. I smiled. A small, triumphant smile. I won't need to. And with that, I walked out of his office, leaving him alone with the consequences of his actions. It felt amazing. As I walked out of David's office that morning, I could feel every eye in the office on me. The usual Monday morning chatter had evaporated, replaced by an oppressive silence. I could sense the tension in the air, the curiosity about what had just transpired behind closed doors. My colleagues weren't even pretending to work anymore. Some of them glanced over their cubicle walls, trying to catch a glimpse of me without making eye contact. Others just kept their heads down, pretending to focus on their screens. Sarah, still sitting at her desk, looked up at me with a mixture of hesitation and uncertainty. She wasn't sure if she should feel guilty for being promoted at my expense or relieved that she had landed such an opportunity. But I didn't care. I didn't blame her for what had happened, and I wasn't interested in offering her any reassurance. I returned to my desk, calm and composed, my mind already shifting toward the next chapter of my life. As I sat down, I opened my email and forwarded my resignation letter to the entire leadership team. The subject line was simple: official resignation notice, effective immediately. I wanted them to know exactly what had happened. The message was clear: no room for negotiation. No regrets. Within seconds, the whispers began. First, they were soft, barely audible, but they grew louder as the reality of my departure settled in. Rachel, one of the few people I trusted, approached me a few minutes later, her eyes wide with disbelief. Emma, is it true? She asked in a hushed tone. I nodded, giving her a small, serene smile. Yeah, it's time for me to move on. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Wow, just wow. I mean, I get it, but I didn't think you'd actually leave. Neither did David, I muttered to myself, but I wasn't going to let it show. Rachel let out a half laugh, half scoff. He's an idiot. Everyone here knows you deserved that promotion. I didn't respond, just stood there, letting the words hang in the air. The rest of the office was buzzing now, the quiet whispers growing into open conversations. Even Sarah had poked her head up from across the room, eyes darting between me and David's office. She didn't know how to react, but I didn't care anymore. The game was over. By the time I was packing up my personal belongings, My inbox pinged with an urgent meeting request from David. The subject read, "Urgent, let's talk." The location was set for his office in 15 minutes. I stared at the email for a moment, feeling a small, bitter laugh bubbling up inside me. Desperate men do desperate things. I had seen it coming. I took my time, walking back to his office at my own pace. The tension was thick in the air as I entered. But I wasn't about to rush. David was sitting behind his desk, looking completely different from the smug, arrogant man I had known for the past 5 years. His shoulders were slumped, and there were dark circles under his eyes. The air around him felt heavy with defeat. "Emma, thanks for coming in," he said, forcing a tight smile. He wasn't the same person anymore. His desperation was palpable. I sat down, crossing my legs, and placed my hands in my lap. "Of course. What's on your mind?" David leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. "I won't waste your time. We need you back." I said nothing. His words hung in the air, heavy with irony. He continued, his voice cracking. "I underestimated your role here. I'll admit that, but we can make this right. If you come back, I'll offer you a substantial raise, a senior executive title, and full decision-making authority over your department." I tilted my head, a cold smile forming on my lips. "So, let me get this straight. You had 5 years to recognize my value. 5 years to promote me. 5 years to respect my work. But instead, you passed me over for someone with 3 months of experience. And now, after losing clients and watching your company spiral, you're offering me everything I deserved all along?" David's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. "Let me ask you something. David, if I hadn't left, would I be sitting in this chair right now? Would you have given me this offer out of appreciation? Or are you only doing it now because you're losing control?" His silence spoke volumes. The truth was clear. David had never seen my worth until it cost him everything. I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. "That's what I thought." David's desperation broke through. "Emma, please, be reasonable. You have history here, a future. Do you really want to throw away everything you've worked for?" I stood up, smoothing my blazer. "You still don't get it, do you? I never needed you. You needed me." I turned to leave, but before I stepped out, I paused, glancing over my shoulder. "You should take notes, David," I said softly, echoing his own words back at him. "Maybe next time, you'll learn to value the people who actually make your company run." With that, I walked out, leaving David to face the consequences of his actions. It felt like a victory, a personal triumph, but also a lesson learned, a lesson I would carry with me for the rest of my life. As I walked out of David's office that day, the weight of everything lifted off my shoulders. I could feel a sense of freedom and control like never before. The office behind me, the place I had dedicated so many years to, was now just a memory. But the new beginning that awaited me was full of promise. I had learned something profound. My value had never been defined by anyone else but myself. And now, I was in a place where my contributions were truly recognized. At Carter and Associates, things moved fast. Within days, I was not just another employee, I was a leader. The respect I had longed for had finally come. And it wasn't because of a promotion on paper, but because of the trust and appreciation that came naturally in this new chapter. People listened to my ideas, valued my input, and recognized the hard work I had put in all these years. It was the validation I had once craved but never received. Meanwhile, at David's company, the chaos only deepened. Clients who had trusted me for years began to realize the void I left behind. The cracks in the foundation of the company became more visible. David had underestimated me, and now, the consequences were beginning to unfold. He had only realized my worth when I walked away. But for me, that wasn't the focus. The focus was on the future, on the growth I would experience, and the lessons I had learned about self-worth, respect, and knowing when to walk away. This was my time, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me again. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more life lessons, Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life stories.